Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for rejoining. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for liking, and most and of all, as always, thank you so much to the sponsors who make these videos possible. I really appreciate your generosity and kindness. This slide is showing a broadsheet, a colorized version of a broadsheet that was published by the Dutch back in this towards late 1677 as the news from the battle reached Europe. It is showing, and in typical 17th century fashion, it is actually compressing different events throughout the day into one specific image. You can see the burning ships, but on the one hand side you see the house, the Kroum, burning and on the reef, but you also see it in the middle of battle with the French flagship. The vessels that you see here on the right hand side, the one with the big flags is Beschermer or de Bescherming. Both versions I have seen. That is the flagship of the Dutch, which was never lost. She ran aground, her cables were cut, she ran aground, but she survived the battle. She was refloated, repaired, and lived to fight one more battle. Farther behind it, also aground, is the other large ship, the 44-gun Wapen van Zeeland. In the foreground here, the two burning ships, one of them probably this here, because this is recorded as a Fluit and we can see the round stern of the vessel, is the Sfera Mundi. And behind on the left we see the burning French and Dutch ships, and we also see the damaged ships at the same time being towed outside. While in the foreground we see the French army attacking the fortification. I will be returning to the images on this vessel when we start discussing our discoveries and our work in the bay as far as the archaeology goes, because this has a bearing to our identification of the vessels. By far the most dramatic event of the battle is the duel between Le Glorieux and the house de Kroum. This is a story that would make an incredible novel if Patrick O'Brian was still alive and if he was interested in writing about interesting events rather than Napoleonic events. But each to his own. The painting that I am showing you here is by the great marine artist Peter Rindlisbacher, a Canadian who currently, I believe, is working in Texas. And this was a sketch that he produced for me many years ago when we were working on TOBAGO, but unfortunately I was never able to raise the money to commission the full work. When I rob a bank next time, I think this is what I will do with the income. The battle has never been... Before we continue actually with the conversation, what happens after that and with the archaeological discoveries from it, let us say that the French returned to Europe. A medal was struck in honor of the great French victory at the Battle of TOBAGO. And, well, Louis was the Grand Master of propaganda after all. And promptly he organized a second expedition, again under D'Estrées, in which he handed very direct and very clear orders that D'Estrées is not to fool around with the comparatively unimportant Tobago, but was to destroy the heart of the Dutch colonies in the Caribbean, specifically Curaçao. So, with an even larger and more powerful squadron than before, D'Estrées returned to the Caribbean. He had about this time he had 3,500 infantry, which is about 7 battalions really, some locally raised from the French colonies, some European soldiers. He carried mortars with himself, he carried siege guns for the attack on Curaçao. Instead of attacking Curaçao, however, he had unfinished business. Meadows are meadows, and propaganda is propaganda, but he knew perfectly well who had won the Battle of Tobago and was eager for revenge. So, one beautiful day, late in December, he returned to the island. He landed his infantry, marched it across, and established positions from which to begin the bombardment of the fort. By this stage, the Dutch forces had really dwindled to about a few hundred men. There was no question of a naval action because the only ships was one of the French which was refloated and repaired that had been captured by the Dutch. Bescherming, which also had been refloated, and a couple of smaller vessels. The best preserved, the other vessels had already been sent to Europe with a request for assistance and reinforcement, which did not arrive on time. In a little too melodramatic turn of the story to be quite believable, legend says it that the third shot fired by the French mortars hit the gunpowder magazine in the fort, blew up the fort and blew up the headquarters of all the officers, killing essentially Banks and pretty much all of his officers, plus another 180 men. Whether it was the 3rd or the 5th or the 10th is really immaterial. The result is clear. With the death of the great Banks, the rest of the outnumbered defenders of the fort just lost heart, considering that 3/4 of the fort was already destroyed by the explosion. This is hardly surprising that they surrendered to the overwhelming French force. What happened after the battle? Theoretically, Tobago became possession of the French crown, but was never occupied really until the 1760s, when the British controlled it, took it over after the 7 Years' War. The island was for all practical purposes abandoned. Throughout the 17th century, regular raiding by American Indians had made it an unproductive colony. The American Indians were perfectly capable of destroying and pushing the Europeans out of the island in this period. So it essentially reverted to native possession and also became a beloved place for hiding for pirates and buccaneers in this period, all the way until into the early 18th century. Enough of that. As far as what happened with the French squadron, from Tobago, the admiral proceeded to actually pay attention to his orders and to destroy Curaçao. On the way there, with a squadron of more than 15 ships, however, he ran into the well-marked, well-known reefs of the Aves, which nowadays belong to Colombia. And he proceeded to deposit his entire squadron onto the reef. If one were to ever get the permission from Colombia to excavate that area, I think it will be a delightful exercise, although logistically it is going to be quite challenging. But virtually the entire French squadron ended up on the reef. As you are aware, Curaçao to the present day remains a Dutch possession. But it is true that the campaigns of this war were strenuous for the Dutch and put an end to their rapid expansion in the area. Subsequently, of course, let's fast forward to modern days and interest in the battle, which really came about in a roundabout way. It came about because of desires to expand the port. There were some dreams of bringing large cruise ships there. That, of course, required the necessary facilities to be constructed. An American archaeologist, the late Wesley Hall, was hired to do a survey of the bay. In fact, he had carried out 2 surveys in the bay. And ultimately, it was Wes Hall who brought me there and showed me the sites. Some construction early in the 90s had already demonstrated the presence of historical shipwrecks. I will not go into the details of what was happening, but the contractor actually had the good desire to protect this cultural heritage. Long story, no need to discuss it further here. It has been, the story has been told elsewhere in other times. A number of cannon were raised from the bay. There is very strong rumor that actually a lot more guns were found in the bay and they have disappeared. I do not know the truth, I do not know the details of this. It is a fact that considering how many ships were lost in the bay, we are seeing fairly few cannon that can be accounted for. At the last count, I could come up with something less than 20. 3 of these cannon are displayed in this postament that you see on this slide. It is next to the ferry terminal that connects the 2 islands of Trinidad and Tobago. One of the guns is cast bronze. Here you see it at the bottom with the coat of arms of Monsieur le Duc de Vendôme, who was the chief of the navy at the time. This gun almost certainly, or at least with very high probability, comes from Glorious, the flagship. We have a fair idea where that wreck may be, but unfortunately it is not accessible for archaeological excavation without disrupting the operations of the port. The other 2 are cast iron guns, and solely based on this they have been identified by others before us as Dutch guns. Considering that both sides were buying guns from the same sources, there is no reason why the iron guns cannot be French too. If you see here on the trunnion, they are the marks O and US, which are the marks of the Swedish foundry Åkerstyckebruk, which began work in the mid-17th century and was specifically dedicated to the casting guns for export as a trade item. The company, weapons company, exists to the present day, I believe, although I think their catalog of artillery pieces has slightly changed from the mid-17th century, but they're still operational. This is a good view over the bay and towards the area of the battle. This is taken in 2014, so it is fairly recent. My last trip to Tobago a couple of years ago did not show any major differences from this photograph. And I was introduced to the island and for the first time went there to see about the possibility of excavating these wrecks. Back in 2006 or 7 with West Hall. It would take until 2012 to actually begin any archaeological project there. Before we enter into this, the reason behind my interest, first and foremost, is because this was a wonderful collection of 17th century ships. And I don't think there is anyone left on Mother Earth who doesn't know that that is my passion. The second reason, of course, was even more apropos. I spent 2 years working inside Vasa, documenting the framing of Vasa. So I thought, what a fantastic possibility to use these Dutch wrecks as comparative material for us, because there are elements in the framing construction that were surprising, not only to me, but they were surprising also to Hoving, one of the great specialists in Dutch shipbuilding, and are not recorded on any other Dutch vessels so far published. So of course, I thought, oh, what a fantastic possibility to compare the wrecks from this battle. They're all dedicated warships to Vasa. It didn't pan out this way, and in the next part we will be discussing exactly what and how and why this did not happen. So with this cheerful thought, I wish you a most wonderful rest of your day. Get over to the SYSTER channel, look at the work in progress there, the live streaming, enjoy it. It's going to be much more entertaining than what I have produced at the moment. So once again, a huge thank you to the sponsors, and I shall see you next time. Thank you ever so much for watching.